There are tensions brewing in the special relationship between the US and the UK over tea. It comes after a US scientist wrote a book on what she believes will create the perfect cuppa. You need to add a tiny pinch of salt to block the perception of bitterness. The US Embassy in the UK was quick to respond, saying,
Hello? Yeah? No, I've just started recording my podcast. Well, what's wrong? What did I say? Yeah, women's safety app. What do you mean it's a gossip app? Trash talking. Oh, yeah, I've not even used the app. I don't even know what it is. Was it a dating app? The news article just said it was some women's safety app, so that's what I said. No, I did shame the tea company. I said their app. No, my point was I was talking about the lack of security and why would anyone use a public bucket? You'd have to configure it. It's private by default. That was the point. No, I don't have a problem with the 4chan users. I have a problem with people getting doxed. Would you like your driving license or whatever it is to be made public? Yeah, well, that was my point. What else did he say? Virtue signalling. Right, let me get on. I'll continue with the show. Thanks. Bye.
That the unthinkable notion of adding salt to Britain's national drink is not official United States policy and never will be. The US Embassy will continue to make tea in a proper way by microwaving it.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. This is episode 32 of The Lockdown, the Practical, Privacy and Security podcast. Now, in today's show, it is just going to be a quick one. I wanted to provide some updates, responding to feedback from listener questions and the last episode, covering briefly what is coming up for me in the coming weeks. Now, some updates. I've had quite a few people get in touch with me. There are 3 ways of getting in touch for this show. There's lockdownpodcast@protonmail.com. If you email me from another Proton Mail account, then that is the most secure and private way of doing it. However, there is also the Matrix community that I've been mentioning in the past few shows. The link is in the show notes. I get quite a few listeners message me directly on there, so that is a great option. And the third option is on the PsySecure website, that's psysecure.com. There is a contact form. However, that is primarily for business inquiries. So I did have someone reach out to me and send me an email. And they said, not sure why you are using Google reCAPTCHA. This is not privacy friendly. Now, I don't know about just privacy. It's not friendly, full stop. But I did have to enable it because without it, I was getting hundreds of spam messages every week or so. And it was just becoming unmanageable. So the best way of contacting me is with the Proton Mail address or even the Matrix community. Okay, so I do want to address the questions that listener sent. So thank you for your message. I wasn't able to reply because it just got a bounce back. So kudos for using a fake email. Now, you said your first question was, I wonder why you would call the tea app a women's safety app. Well, first off, how very astute of you for picking that up. And I'll be totally honest. The reason I said it is I was glancing at the news article. So I did some homework before the show and read some articles on Bleeping Computer. I'll include the main one in the show notes, and that's how it referred to the app. I assume that's how they market it as well, but that is certainly not an endorsement of the app. But that's how the media labelled the app, so I just picked up off of that. Now, you say that a women's gossip app or trash talking app would be more accurate, and yeah, you're absolutely right. You're probably right. I do not agree with these apps in the first place. These apps are always open to abuse. It would be like an app for rating your neighbour. And these could be marketed with great intentions. You know, you're buying a house, you want to check out what the neighbours are like. But even that is a stretch. None of these apps are a good idea. Hopefully, I wasn't giving anyone the impression that I was endorsing the tea app at all. I think it's awful. I do not want to shame people. I don't want to shame the 4chan users that are making comments, and I do not want to shame the users using the app. And I don't want to shame the men that are also victims here because they're being targeted on the app, because I do not know the circumstances. It also could be someone cheating on their wife or husband. I don't know. I don't care. That is not the angle I am taking here. Now, what I wanted to leave everyone with, certainly after that show last week, was how badly engineered these apps are in the first place. Now, whether it's an app for signing up for your local pool, or an app for the coffee shop, or a open quote women's safety app, close quote, whatever it is, these apps are a bad idea in the first place. But secondly, and this was the point I was trying to make, they're really badly engineered. When storage buckets, whether that be on Firebase or Amazon S3, wherever it is, are private by default, it's just incompetence from the developer's point of view, and they obviously don't know what they're doing, and the only way they can get it working is to make it public. Sure, it works, but they obviously have no code reviews or any security or processes. Now, this listener goes on to mention a few other things. Hopefully, I've already addressed that. Now, whether it is tea or a social media app that wants access to your contacts, this is what we need to try and stop. We already have a huge problem on our hands with friends and family that install social media, WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook. The list goes on, and you know these people because I've got them in my circles too. And I assume that they've given access to the device contacts for these apps, and they are going to be siphoning my data. So what do? Well, there's little you can do, but this is why I have a mysudo number just for friends and family. I also ask them not to store my home address in their contacts. Now, in my case, I live almost 5,000 miles away from my family back in the UK. So it's not like they're going to be coming round at the weekend for a barbecue. So the address I give them to send birthday cards, things like that, is the UPS store. Now, I know not all of you can get away with that, but they're some of the mitigations I try and put in place, knowing that the apps they use will be siphoning the contact information, and I'll probably be in there as well, which then could end up in data breaches and data brokers and wherever that data is sold. Now, running a podcast is time consuming and very challenging. As well as my full-time job, I do spend my evenings and weekends on my other projects. So I have very little time for television, video games. As I mentioned, I don't play those so much these days. And just trying to stay healthy, getting outside and going to the gym is a stretch in itself. But also the nature of a podcast is it's one way. I'm just talking here in my home studio, and I don't get feedback until a few days later. So if I've left the wrong impression, for that I apologise. But this applies to any episode. Always feel free to get in touch. As I say, the best way to contact me directly is lockdownpodcast@protonmail.com. And I would say the second best way is the Matrix community. But that's actually better if you want to speak to over 100 other privacy enthusiasts like us. Oh, and before I forget, I don't agree with doxing anyone. So let's say there is a huge data breach and one of us has access to this huge data set, whether it's users on this so-called safety app or, I don't know, the local DMV, whatever it is. It's not a good idea to start torrenting and sharing that, whether it's on 4chan or on a Tor site or wherever it is. Now, for OSINT investigators, do we want a copy of that? Absolutely, but we're not going to be using that for malicious purposes. Anyway, let's move on to the next listener question. In fact, this one just came through today, and it's not so much a question, but more of some useful information to share on privacy.com. So let me read that out. Now, what they have done to avoid account issues with privacy.com, and I'm going to read this exactly as they wrote it. So number 1, open a second checking account with your bank. 2, when it comes to the setup of the Plaid access through privacy.com, only give Plaid permissions to that secondary checking account. Number 3, they say only use the secondary checking account for privacy.com transactions, nothing else. And then your entire transaction history on this account will only ever be privacy.com transactions. So Plaid will only see these transactions and not the rest of your banking history. And finally, they say put only enough funds in this secondary account to cover your monthly privacy.com billing needs. That is a great solution. One of the things I've noticed with privacy.com, with this family member, they only gave them access using Plaid initially, but with a support ticket And it was actually, they referred, not official referral to me, but they said I was referred on by a friend, and they said they have the ability to use a debit card. Can I do this too? They said, yeah, sure, we'll enable that for you. So they had to do that at their end. That was, as I say, about 5 years ago. I don't know if that's still the case now. But if you're using privacy.com, I don't know if they're going to want you to use Plaid initially to age the account, as it were, but it's always worth asking if you can use a debit card as a funding source. Now, I'm still waiting to get in touch with this family member so I can help them. I don't want to open a support ticket on their behalf. I'd rather do it from their device within the app. So I will keep you up to date on the outcome. But as I say, it's been around a month now and they have not had access to privacy.com. So I do like the idea of this second account that's only for privacy. One thing I would be careful of, and I've actually had this when I was financing a home, was they wanted a bank statement. And if all it says is privacy.com on every line, then that might raise some red flags. So if anything, the secondary checking account could also alleviate that, because if they need to see your real account where you get paid and where your mortgage is paid from, for example, then that will look fairly legitimate. So yeah, great advice there. And what I would say to the person that wrote that, I won't mention the name in case it's their real name, is try opening a support ticket and then asking privacy.com if you can use a debit card as the funding source. It'd be interesting if they're still allowing that. I'm pretty sure they will. But as I said in the last episode, I am a huge fan of privacy.com. But that also worries me because I'm such a huge fan of it. It could go away tomorrow. It may not. I could be completely off. So we've always got to be prepared in what to do. It's the same as emails. This is why I have a custom domain. If you relied on just protonmail.com, as I do for Lockdown Podcast, but that's not too major, we could always update that on the show. The point is, I can move my custom domains anywhere. So ProtonMail and the issues with Switzerland become a serious concern. They're not at the moment, but if they do, then great. I can just switch that to another email provider, such as Tutor. Now, another question. Someone said they really enjoyed the Capture the Flag challenge. This was actually from someone that won the code. So again, congratulations to you. I hope you're enjoying your 6 months access to try Hack Me. Anyway, they said, really enjoy the Capture the Flag challenge. When am I likely to do another one? And will it be OSINT this time? Honestly, it probably won't be till next year, but possibly towards the end of the year, we will see. Now, an OSINT challenge is something I do have in mind, but I need to be careful because we don't want to, going back to doxing, we don't want to do this on a real person. Perhaps we should pick on a celebrity. I don't know. I need to think that through. Perhaps I need to get a lawyer involved. I don't know. But yeah, I think the challenge, it was a lot of fun for me, and I had a lot of positive feedback around that. So if you have any ideas, feel free to send them in. Now, this was just intended to be a short episode this week because, as many of you know, I am traveling on the road, which leads to the last listener question that I'm going to read out today. Will I be at Black Hat this year? No, I won't, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I'm going to be outside of the US. Let's put it that way. I'm going to be traveling for a few weeks. Now, I have made a commitment to myself that I will be at Black Hat next year. So for this year, possibly we'll be at some smaller cybersecurity conferences, possibly B-sides, things like that. There's another conference called Osmosis, which is a smaller OSINT-based conference. They normally run a few events a year. But other than that, I'm already gearing up for RSA, believe it or not, which is going to be next year. So spending some time this week preparing some sessions for the RSA security conference. But no, unfortunately, I will not be at Black Hat. So for those of you that are going to be at Black Hat, please do enjoy it. It's going to be a great event. It's a shame I can't be there. Now, it's funny, I always used to hate Vegas, and in a way I still do, but it has started growing on me. I prefer to be outside in nature, walking in the woods, in the forest, by a stream, that kind of thing. And Vegas is the absolute opposite of that. You have this strange scent they put in all the air conditioning in every building. There's lights and noise and it's constant craziness. So perhaps my senses have been dumbed down a bit from all the visits to Vegas, but I do enjoy going there mainly to meet up with people, and it is pretty convenient. And I like, if any of you don't know this, I love Indian food. So if you're ever in Vegas, you should check out Mount Everest India Cuisine. Now, they are in West Sahara Avenue, 3641 to be exact, and it's slightly outside of the Strip. And if you turn up at the place, you get an Uber there, for example, you will think, where the hell has Ray sent me now? It doesn't look great from the outside, but trust me, the food is great. But only if you like Indian food. And as I say, it doesn't look much from the outside. It's fairly basic inside as well, but I happen to love the food. Now, let me address one more listener question and then we'll close out the show for today. I just wanted to make sure we have a show before my travels. Now, this was actually a comment in the Matrix community where someone said buying a second-hand car or an older car isn't exactly minimalism. But I'll touch on that in a moment because it was actually an email where someone was asking more about my interest in Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius. I'm certainly no expert. I have read the book. I find it quite interesting. And it was really about my approach and what I encourage everyone really into not always needing the latest gadget, the latest car or the latest whatever it may be. Look at the iPhone. This is a classic example. If iPhone release a new model tomorrow, it will probably look exactly the same than the previous model. Maybe the camera has moved or they've got some extra, a LiDAR sensor on the back. It's almost like these circles just move around on this rectangle and each year they charge thousands of dollars for it. I think it's ridiculous. Now, someone actually emailed me a few weeks ago saying they can't afford to buy the latest Graphene OS, the latest Pixel device for Graphene OS. But that's the beauty of Graphene OS. You don't have to have the latest, and I wouldn't even recommend it. Now, I've got a Pixel 8 Pro, which I consider fairly recent. I've also got a Pixel 7 Pro. It's got more storage, so I sometimes switch between the two. But from what I understand, the Pixel 9, the camera, the battery, it's all pretty much the same. Unless someone says this is, your battery is now going to last 3 days between charges, which is highly unlikely with today's technology, or the camera is vastly improved, then what I've got works just fine. And it's the same with cars. But where I was going with the cars is it doesn't have to be a new car. Like I linked to this Dodge Ram that Cozy Living Machine takes the telematics module out. And that was a 2024 model. So that was just less than a year ago. But they are expensive trucks. They're not cheap. So an old Toyota, I think I mentioned an old Toyota pickup truck. There was an episode of Top Gear. This was in the UK, if you've ever watched the British version, where they had a Toyota pickup truck and they tried to destroy it. They literally dropped this thing from a crane, drove it off of a cliff, they blew it up. This thing just kept on running. Now, to go back to the minimalism comment in the Matrix community, I didn't respond direct because I thought I'd just address it here. But if I could get away with not having a vehicle at all, trust me, I would. But where I live, in this particular part of the US, I cannot even walk to the shop to buy some milk. I have to cross freeways. I'll probably get arrested by the police for jaywalking, whatever. I'm still confused of the laws there, not too familiar with it. Because coming from the UK, where I used to live, I could literally walk from my house, 30 minutes at most, and I'd be at all the shops. I could buy milk. In fact, there was a corner shop 15 minutes away from where I used to live, which was useful because if you wanted just to buy milk and eggs, that type of thing, you could. So one of the things I'm doing in my personal life is more simplification. Maybe minimalism is the right word. I wouldn't say having a MacBook Pro and a Pixel 8 Pro is exactly minimalist, but heading in that direction. And I think this is what helps our privacy. So going back to buying a vehicle, when it's time for me to, I would say upgrade, but it's probably going to be a downgrade to another vehicle, I am going to be looking on YouTube to see how to take the telematics module out. And as I said, I wish there was a video or a guide on every single car. So if anyone wants to take up that challenge, then good luck. I think that would be quite an expensive thing to try and do. Now, can you imagine if there was a Graphene OS equivalent of the Waymo? So Waymo's owned by Google. I think I mentioned it on previous shows. I was in San Francisco. This was during RSA, and I did use Waymo. Now, sure, I had an alias Google account, which I used to log in. That was linked to a privacy.com card. So I hid my details as best as possible. But listen, these things have got dozens of cameras. So I'm under no illusion that this thing wasn't recording my face, and I'm probably storing that for other reasons. That's a risk I took. But I must admit, I did really like being in a car with no Uber driver It was a very pleasant experience. So it's never going to happen, but can you imagine a Graphene OS equivalent, like an open source self-driving car, a robo-taxi? That's probably just the stuff of science fiction movies. We can only dream. Now with that, I'm going to end the show there because I do have a lot of travel coming up. So I'm going to use this time to take a break. I may surprise you with an episode in the next few weeks, but I'm probably going to take a short break to focus on some other projects and get all this other travel out of the way. But the privacy journey does not have to end there. As I said, there is the Matrix community. We've got now, as I speak, 117 members, and that just keeps going up. The links are in the show notes. Please come and say hello, join there. There's a thriving community and there's some very useful advice. And if you have any questions, you will probably get some very solid answers in there as well. Keep those emails coming in. As I say, the best way to contact me direct is using lockdownpodcast@protonmail.com. And if you have any ideas for future episodes or topics you'd like me to cover, do let me know. I'm sure I'll have plenty of stories to tell after my travels. Anyway, take care and talk to you very soon.